One delivers real nutrients to your soil. Gardening often begins with the soil. Healthy soil is the foundation of thriving plants, and many gardeners spend years trying to enrich it with compost. Composting has long been celebrated as the gold standard for recycling organic matter back into the earth. But what if there's a faster, cleaner, and more effective way to turn waste into nutrients? What if, instead of waiting months for your compost pile to break down, you could create a powerful soil amendment in just a few weeks? That's exactly why I ferment instead of composting, and why you might want to do the same. Traditional composting has its merits, but it's not without challenges. Piles of grass clippings and kitchen scraps often become slimy and smelly. They attract pests and require constant turning to keep oxygen flowing. Even with perfect management, compost can take 6 months to a year before it's ready to use. What's more, composting relies on oxidation. The high-heat breakdown process releases valuable nitrogen into the atmosphere as ammonia gas. Every gardener who has walked past a hot compost pile and smelled that sharp odor has unknowingly watched nutrients vanish into thin air. By the time compost is finished, a significant portion of the nitrogen has already been lost. For busy gardeners or those working with limited space, traditional composting can quickly feel like more trouble than it's worth. Fermentation takes organic matter down a completely different path. Instead of oxygen and heat, fermentation thrives in oxygen-free conditions. It harnesses beneficial microorganisms, particularly lactic acid bacteria, which produce organic acids that preserve nutrients and suppress harmful pathogens. The result is a nutrient-rich material that looks and smells nothing like rotten waste. Fermented clippings take on a golden brown color and give off a pleasant, slightly sweet and sour aroma, kind of like pickles or sourdough starter. Instead of attracting pests, the acidic environment repels them, and best of all, the process is complete in just 3 to 6 weeks. So, the real magic of fermentation lies in nutrient preservation. You see, compost piles lose nitrogen as gas during decomposition, but fermentation actually locks it in. The organic acids produced during the process chelate minerals, making them more accessible to plant roots once applied to soil. This means more nitrogen, phosphorus, and trace elements stay in forms your plants can use. Fermented matter also introduces living beneficial microbes directly into the soil. These organisms continue their work long after application, establishing symbiotic relationships with plant roots, improving nutrient uptake, and suppressing soil-borne diseases. At its core, fermentation is controlled anaerobic decomposition. When grass clippings or other organic materials are submerged in water with an inoculant, the sugars within the plant matter feed lactic acid bacteria. These bacteria multiply rapidly in the oxygen-free environment, producing lactic acid, acetic acid, and other compounds that lower the pH. Within just a few days, the environment becomes so acidic, around pH 3.5 to 4.0, that harmful bacteria just can't survive. What remains is a safe, stable, and nutrient-dense material ready to enrich your soil. Getting started requires surprisingly little. A 5-gallon food-grade bucket with a tight-fitting lid works perfectly for most households. The key is maintaining anaerobic conditions while allowing gases to escape. This can be done by fitting the lid with a simple airlock, which you can find at most home brewing supply stores. Alternatively, you can run a tube from the lid into a jar of water, creating a one-way valve for carbon dioxide to bubble out while keeping oxygen from entering. The ratio of clippings to water is crucial. Aim for about 60% fresh clippings and 40% water by volume. Pack the clippings into the container, leaving about 2 inches of headspace, then pour in just enough water to cover the material. For every gallon of total mixture, add 2 tablespoons of molasses and a 1/4 cup of rice wash water. The molasses provides extra sugars for the microbes, while the rice wash introduces naturally occurring beneficial organisms. Temperature matters too. Fermentation moves fastest at 70 to 85 degrees Fahrenheit. Cooler conditions will slow the process, while excessive heat can kill beneficial microbes. During summer, buckets should be kept in the shade or indoors. In winter, fermentation still works but may take longer, often resulting in even more complex microbial communities. Within the first week, you should notice bubbling in the airlock, which is a really good sign that gases are being released. You'll also start to pick up a pleasant, pickle-like aroma. If you notice any foul odors though, that's usually a sign something went wrong, maybe contamination or the ratios weren't quite right. In that case, it's best to start over with clean materials and a sanitized container. By the time you reach about 3 to 6 weeks, the bubbling will slow down a lot or even stop completely. The clippings should have turned a golden brown color, and the pH should settle somewhere between 3.5 and 4.0. At this stage, your fermented soil amendment is ready to use. Once your fermentation is complete, you can actually use the material in several different ways. For direct soil improvement, just work the material into your garden beds at a rate of about 1 inch per square foot. The acidity is great for loosening up clay soils, while the organic matter really helps with water retention in sandy soils. You can also use fermented clippings as a top dressing by spreading them around the base of your plants. Just remember to keep the material a few inches away from the stems to avoid any risk of burning. Maybe the most versatile option is turning it into liquid fertilizer. To do this, simply strain the liquid from your fermentation bucket, then dilute it with water before applying. The ideal ratio is 1 part fermented liquid to 10 parts water for most plants, but if you have more sensitive plants, you might want to go with 1 part fermented liquid to 20 parts water. This diluted mix can be poured directly onto the soil as a drench or even used as a foliar spray during the cooler hours of the day. The liquid fertilizer is especially powerful because it delivers nutrients, beneficial microorganisms, and organic acids right to your plants in a form they can absorb immediately. Beyond grass clippings, expanding the possibilities is really exciting. Once you master fermenting lawn clippings, you'll realize, honestly, the technique extends far beyond just grass. Kitchen scraps, like fruit peels, vegetable trimmings, coffee grounds, and eggshells ferment beautifully. Fall leaves, which are notoriously slow to compost, actually ferment quickly when chopped and mixed into the solution. Even weeds pulled from your garden, seeds included, become valuable once fermented. The acidic environment destroys seed viability, so you can rest easy knowing they won't sprout back in your beds. You can even create specialized ferments for specific plant needs. For example, banana peels combined with coffee grounds produce a potassium-rich amendment that's perfect for fruiting and flowering crops. Seaweed ferments into a mineral-packed solution that boosts trace nutrients. Even cardboard and paper can be fermented, though they do require a bit longer processing and an extra nitrogen source to balance them out. Building a healthier garden ecosystem is, honestly, one of the best parts of using fermented amendments. The long-term effects are pretty profound. Regular application builds soil organic matter more effectively than compost because nutrients remain stable and available over time. This cumulative effect really strengthens soil structure, improves fertility, and creates a living ecosystem where beneficial microbes dominate. Fermented matter also contributes to carbon sequestration. The stable organic compounds produced during fermentation persist longer in soil, locking carbon away and supporting climate-positive gardening practices. Over time, gardens that rely on fermentation just require fewer external inputs as the soil becomes self-sustaining and resilient. So, here's a call to action for you. Fermentation is more than a gardening trick, it's a shift in perspective. You're transforming waste into soil gold in weeks instead of months, preserving nutrients instead of losing them, and creating a cleaner, more efficient way to build soil health. With nothing more than a bucket, some grass clippings, and a little microbial magic, you can change the way you feed your garden forever. Start your fermentation journey today with your next batch of clippings. Experience the difference in your plants, your soil, and your harvests. And hey, remember to subscribe to Soil and Crop Central, and share this guide with fellow gardeners who are ready to take their soil to the next level. Soil and Crop Central.